if I can. There we go.
Anybody send any questions or anything?
No, not this week.
Not this
Any
week.
what? Have any what?
Questions.
Oh,
Because sometimes people will send in, they'll
yeah.
email questions, but nobody answer. Nobody
Nobody
emailed.
this week. Okay.
Nope.
Any others? The others.
Yeah, it just comes in through the email, and sometimes they'll say, hey, whatever question it might be, and then answering it here is we've done that a couple times.
Mhm.
Excuse me if I cough a few times through this little while. I got something stuck in my throat. Some pepper got my throat.
Mm.
So I'll be clearing
Okay.
my throat a while.
Well, I mean, you can mute yourself, cough, and then unmute yourself. I do that all the time in Teams
Yeah.
meetings when
Yeah.
I'm at work.
Yeah.
I'll
Actually, I should know that because I do it on the air too when I'm on the radio. Oh,
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, basically, I'm just like, you can tell from my picture, it's like the energy's bad. It's sort of like anytime I'm just having a hard time doing things. Things aren't, doing what I want them to do. Normally things slide along, pretty comfortably.
Well, just know that if things aren't going your way, this is just a concept. And it can easily be discarded by remaining with your selfless self. That's the absolute truth. You don't want to get caught up in this mind created, like, oh, things are not going good and this or that, or, even like in voodoo, they practice that kind of like giving a suggestion to someone and then saying like, oh, now you're cursed and this and that. And you start to believe this curse and you create this energy of being cursed. Or if you're having a bad day, you're like, oh, you know, nothing's going right this day. And you're continuously creating this concept of things going bad. But just remember that all of this is just mind flow. Don't get identified. What's happening is not actually happening. It appears to be happening, so it needs to be dealt with in the moment. But there's no such thing as like a long bad day, unless, of course, you start to say, I am having a bad day.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Absolutely. Even today, we were told, and in my work, that we may have to go back to the office. And it could even be 5 days a week, which is, quite frankly, terrible. I've been working from home since 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And there's resistance there, of course. It's like, oh, the commute and this and that. But I kept just remaining, okay. Because you know yourself. Absolutely. You are not this that you appear to be. So you don't want to get caught in a disturbance of something is happening to me. And it's not a mind thing where you say, oh, nothing's actually happening to me. It's a remaining with your own self. Because when these pressures come up, that's when identification could get linked, and you don't want to make the link. You just want to remain with your selfless self, because when you remain with your selfless self, it unwinds all the concepts. You know, you can sit, and even if you're just listening to mantra running through naturally, oh yes. And you don't have to think about thinking or not thinking about this thing that's seemingly disturbing. You remain with your selfless self. And as I said, for my own self, we're having the meeting, and the manager is trying to be very gentle, like, well, there's the possibility that we might have to come in anywhere from 2 days a week to possibly the full 5 days a week. And you could hear everybody like groaning, like, oh God.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, this is it. Number one, nothing's happened yet. So to think about anything is useless. It's just basically saying, I'm creating someone to be disturbed. We're going to jump into the illusion and create a disturbance, just as if I'm in a dream and I'm disturbed by something in my dream. I might even wake up sweating because I'm disturbing myself because I'm involved. I'm pretending, not pretending, I'm actually impressing that this falseness is the reality. I'm taking my role far too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way is just to remain with yourself. Because the truth is, it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen. This body is going to go through what it goes through. You can't really change that. You can't just say, oh, you know, I'm not going back. Oh, okay, then we're just going to fire you. Oh, okay, then now I've got, you know, no, it's a simple thing of this is happening. Okay. When you get the email that says, please be at work Monday morning at 7 o'clock or whatever, then, okay, master, it's going to be rough for me. No, I am not body. And if you have to, say, master, please give me the energy, give me the strength. Be with me, move with me. You know, just like Maharaj says, constantly being in touch with your own self and having the internal dialogue with your own self of, okay, my master, I have to do this. You're going to give me the strength. And okay, now I'm doing okay. And then scenes appearing and disappearing. No need to be an actor taking actions upon yourself to create an egoistic sense of doership. And that's that. Resisting is not a good idea because you have to create a resistor. And the resistor allows the mind to be identified with the flow of thoughts in every which direction that you are attempting to resist. So the best thing, remain with yourself. Good news is coming, remain with yourself. Celebration is coming, remain with yourself. Sadness coming, remain with yourself. Because all these are states, and you're not a state. You're that to whom all these states appear, play for a time, and disappear.
Mhm.
Hello, Kitty.
Well, I didn't realize I was muted. Has anybody been saying anything?
No.
Okay. I just said a long speech.
Oh, you muted yourself again. Heath, now we can't hear you. You're muted. So if you're asking a question, he's remaining with himself.
Are you there?
Yes. You were on mute. You spoke a little bit and then muted yourself.
Yeah, no, it's like I bumped something and it was making different pages. Oh no, you still there?
Yes, we're here.
Now it's starting to disappear again.
Hmm.
The visual screen has disappeared. But anyway, I guess I won't mute. You can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't see or I only know you're there if I hear you.
Okay. Maybe you need to make the screen bigger again, or.
I'm not going to touch it anymore because
Okay.
last time I touched it, I ended up cutting myself out of the meeting, I guess.
Okay.
So anyway, I was saying something else that helped me from being unsettled was I guess I noticed it again recent or just today, and it was something I actually helped me a long time ago when I was just starting to get sober in AA. And I was in a halfway house, and any little things that happened that I didn't like or would upset me a little bit, and then it would just change my energy for the rest of the day, and every little thing I would be impatient and feeling negative real easy. So when kept looking at that, why is this happening? And I realized I was doing it to myself, in a sense. Of course, I'm still that's still an idea of believing you're a self and you're doing this to yourself. It still gave me a recognition and ability to step back and not do it because I don't know, it just enabled me to stop doing it to myself so much. And then so I was so I was thinking today about how I feel I judge myself as being I'm not always feeling bliss and expansive. So this idea of feeling limited and not expansive is something that in a sense, I'm doing it to myself because I'm holding on to the concept that it can be different.
We're holding on to the concept that have a local identification that can be limited.
Yeah, right.
That just has to be removed by remaining with yourself as self.
Right.
Because it's just a concept that has appeared on your spontaneous presence.
So the trick is to get something to enable me to stop the identification so that this selfless self can be recognized. And that's where
the truth, if you're in meditation and you know this subtle sense of presence, this just I, find that. It's always there.
Right. That's the tricky thing to find.
You are always in a moment of choice of going out to the world or looking within using that awareness to look within and find that sense of presence. And then once the sense of presence is discovered, then you'll see the coverings on that sense of presence. And from the position, all you know is presence. These coverings, these different things that are on presence, they're like the scum at the top of the water. Then you have the water. Then you have like the deep. And all of those are just layers.
And that's where seeing it all as within me helps too.
Well, and nothing to see, because when you look in whatever disturbance, in whatever seemingly is happening, you're formless. There's a concept that forms, I'm not formless, and I'm thinking this thought, or I'm having this experience. So you remain with your sense of presence, which is that doorway to your own self, because all of these concepts are appearing on that presence. You could even say it's that layer, the layer of presence, the things. So you have like icing on this cake, and all the little toppings on the icing, the writing, the flowers, all of this sort of stuff is appearing on that icing. And then the icing is a covering over the cake. And you're the formless cake. The icing is the sense of presence. And all of the decorations, this entire world, all the people, everything moving about, everything that's known, all the thoughts, all the experiences are on that layer of presence. So you remain with only the awareness of presence. And that's it. Everything else is just a layer and can be discarded. And you just remain with yourself. And you do that in every experience. Somebody says, oh, Keith, this very tragic thing is happening, or something. First, rather than going along with it, because that's the line that you've been given, Keith, something tragic is happening. Now, Keith, the you that you believe yourself to be, runs the script of how this tragic thing is affecting Keith, who does not exist, but you're creating this Keith conceptually that is having this experience that you're not enjoying. So rather than all that, rather than accept the script, remain with your selfless self. And as you mentioned AA, they talk about that as pause when agitated or doubtful. It's the same thing. There's a pause because you're looking at your own self. The more you've been in meditation and the more you've kind of trained your awareness to only be aware of presence, there's just presence. Everything else is an appearance on my presence, and I'm out of it. And yes, you could say, oh, well, John, that's very much using duality in this way and that way and this way. But if you're going to accept the script that someone is giving you, you're already dropped into duality, which is only a concept. And this is just refreshing your memories. Oh, so that I am that. This formlessness, presence has appeared. All these things have appeared on presence. And I just need to, as we talked about before, the reverse GPS. Nothing. There's nothing here, nothing to concern yourself with, because there's no self that can be identified with a limited something. There's no local identification. There's no limiting, because there's nothing. You're prior to the concept of limitation or expansion, or even remaining with your selfless self. When you are here, there is no there, because there's nothing. And now you do your job, do your duties, take care of your responsibilities. And you don't take the touch. How can you take a touch if you're formless? The only way to take the touch is if you have created the conceptual form of Keith. This is Keith. This is how it's affecting Keith. And this is what Keith needs to do to stop or to increase whatever is this thing, if it's positive or negative, in the voice and mind of Keith. Okay, reverse GPS, unwind Keith. Go back to your original nature. Prior to Keith, prior to the knowing of existence that created the concept of Keith through the explosion of I exist and the dualistic state that appeared.
So from a perspective of a Keith that's identifying with what's going on.
What's happening to Keith, but you're not Keith.
By identifying a Keith, then it does make it feel like a Keith.
Well, Keith is a lump of 5 elemental goo that has the label Keith for identification within the dualistic illusory sense of existence. But you're not Keith. When the body Keith falls, it will mean nothing for you. When the body John falls, not trying to beat on Keith like, oh, it means nothing. That's very mean. No, when the body John falls, it means nothing to you either.
As well, I don't really feel it like when other people die. I don't
There's
know.
no one being born and no one's dying. A bunch of 5 elemental goo is being animated by the presence that you are with labels. And then because there's speaking and listening and all this sort of stuff and the concept of separation, due to the fact that there are multiple body forms, the mind is impressing that it's me and you're you. But when you know yourself as formless, how in the world could these forms be separate when they're inside of something?
So I won't feel it when I die either.
Well, you just remain with yourself, and then you're just you. But see, there's no Keith dying. The body that is labeled Keith will no longer be able to sustain the essence, and therefore the experience of Keith will cease to exist. But there's no experience, no experiencer. Because that same experiencer is experiencing as Alan and John and Trish and Beth and all the seeming people all over the world and the world itself and the ducks and the fish, just like, again, you lay down to sleep. One of the little dream people drowns. The dreamer is unaffected and is still dreaming all those other people who are observing the one dreamer drowning.
That's wild.
No one's born, no one dies. And no, birth and death are concepts that will not affect you because you absolutely know they're just not true. I mean, you don't go to a funeral and say, you know what? Nobody died, it's all good. You know, you remain with your selfless self because even in a dream, those dream bodies are, you know, there's a local identification of presence with each body that is experiencing the sense of I exist, and identification comes that this is me. So the sense of individuality is impressed as this is my thought, my dreaming, my consciousness. But again, you can dispel all of that because A, you know yourself in a real sense, and B, the dream is the key. The formless dreamer dreams a world, populates it with people, animals, whatever, and it's all one dreamer dreaming.
And it's always different, so it can't really be real.
Well, none of the, you know it's not real because you wake up and you know, oh, where did that world go? Where did all these dream people go? You populated all these dream people, and now they're not there. You know this. They came formlessly, created a form, became something in the nothing for a time, and went back to nothing because they are nothing. Formlessly, these things were seemingly created, and a whole dream story and dream people, dream animals, dream everything, dream weather. And all of those people in the dream believe they're separate individuals. You know, when you're dreaming, you're speaking to people and they're not saying, oh, yes, we are all one. No, unless you're dreaming about like being on a spiritual retreat or something. But
Mhm.
they're just dream. Like there's only you. And again, the limited identification with someone creates the concept of waking and dreaming consciousness being different. So when you know yourself in a real sense, this limited identification is not there. So how can waking and dreaming consciousness be separate if there's no individual that's dreaming or experiencing these waking or dreaming state? Consciousness, creating form within the formlessness, moving things about and populating and all this sort of stuff, and you're not affected.
Yeah, I always get the idea that, like you said, that sleep is a different type of consciousness than awake
Because
consciousness.
you're still identified as an individual.
And it could say that
If you're space, how can you have a dreaming space and waking space?
it really seems like I experience unconsciousness or unawareness and awareness, as if they are.
Awareness is always aware. When there are objects to be aware of, so to
That's
speak.
that's where the rub.
But let's not use the word awareness. You remain with your selfless self prior to words, and you absolutely know yourself. It's formless. There's no way you can interact with this world, nor can this world affect you. The entire earth could explode, and 8 billion people could evaporate, and it wouldn't even be felt. Just like the space around the earth would not be affected.
The idea of awareness and unawareness are two concepts within.
Well, you have to have a someone or something to be aware and unaware. And how can you be unaware? How would anything say, I am unaware of even myself? I'm not aware of myself. But in order to speak this, you have to be in the concept of duality. I exist and I am aware or unaware. But there's no I that's aware. Again, dream. There's no separate dreamer that says, this is my dream, until you wake up. And then you have the concept of, I was dreaming. You say, oh, I was dreaming. This was my dream. But there's no like sidelined, like they talk about in the Bhagavad Gita, the knower and the field. There's no dreaming knower that has this field out here and he's knowing this field. It's one. It's appearing, known, and disappearing. But the knower remains. The knower never, because if the knower was not, then how would anything be known? Because you'd have to like cue up the knower every time there was something to be known.
So the ideas of knowing and unknown and not knowing are within knowing. They both
Are within the bubble of illusion.
Yeah.
The you that you are does not know or not know. There's no such thing as manifest or unmanifest. Again, the Maharaj does this beautifully. Prior to beingness, did you know anything about manifestation? Prior to beingness, did you know anything about unmanifest? Prior to beingness, did you know nothing? Did you know awareness?